We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Tokom svoje diplomatske karijere bio je šef programa za razoružanje, kontrolu oružja i bezbednosnu saradnju pri NATO-u. Bavio se zabranom hemijskog oružja. Od 2008. do 2011. godine bio je šef misije Ujedinjenih nacija na Kosovu. Pokušavao je da probleme Srba i Albanaca rešava razgovorom sa obema stranama. Pojedine albanske stranke tražile su da bude proglašen personom non grata, a prištinski mediji dali su mu nadimak Zannierović. Od 1. jula 2011. godine obavlja funkciju generalnog sekretara Organizacije za evropsku bezbednost i saradnju. Gost emisije Recite Al Jazeeri je ambasador Lambert Zannier.
Mr. Zannieri, first of all, thank you for your time. Let's start with the current events. A few days ago you have been in Macedonia talking with government and opposition representatives about the ethnic motivated incident. What was your message to them?
Well, my message to them was that they need to be taken seriously. I expressed my concern for those developments. I also encouraged them in following up with what they started doing themselves, which is serious investigations and showing that there is rule of law and that it is important to maintain stability in the country. But there is also an underlying issue, an underlying concern that we have, that these incidents might show increasing divisions between the ethnic communities. And I think this is something that we all need to look into, the international community and also the authorities of the countries, in promoting more integration. One of the issues we're discussing was the strategy on education, where we need really to make sure that the young generations already come together, that they learn together and they learn to live together and develop a way as societies become multi-ethnic everywhere, not only in the Western Balkans, but also in Western Europe everywhere, and where integration is increasingly important, where we find every now and then obstacles, also in Europe. And we have to deal with them, and we have to deal with them in a way that is inclusive. Segregation must be avoided. So I think it is important to pass these messages, and this is something, it's a theme that is also relevant here in Bosnia. It's a theme I was dealing with when I was in Kosovo with the United Nations. And it's something that is very important for everybody in the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia today.
There was a peace march during the last weekend, but I'm interested, is there a possibility that those incidents erupt in something bigger, in events that cannot be controlled?
I didn't find any signs pointing to that. I think the climate is very different overall from what we saw in 2001. So I don't think that we should worry too much at these episodes. But certainly there is a trend, and the trend needs to be changed. Because if you don't do anything to correct it, then you might have an increasing polarization of the sides, and you can create longer-term problems that will become an obstacle in the further development of countries in the region. And I'm not referring only to what I saw when I was in Skopje. So I think it is important to avoid trends that could be over time negative.
1 year or more than 1 year after the elections, Bosnia and Herzegovina have a new government, Council of Ministers actually, and Mr. Bevanda have a very optimistic plan to gain European membership candidate status until the end of June. Is that possible, and what are the issues that Bosnia have to solve to gain that candidate status?
Well, whether this is possible, it's for the Europeans to tell, certainly not for me. But I had a meeting with Chairman of the Council Minister Bevanda this morning, and I told him that I found his pragmatic approach very focused on economic issues, very focused on stepping up the pace of its own engagement with the European Union, very positive. I told him that this is something that we certainly, as the OSCE, would look forward to supporting. I was myself a couple of weeks ago in Brussels, and I had a discussion with President Barroso, with Commissioner Füle, and as we hear that a strategy of integration in the EU is a key objective for Bosnia and Herzegovina, we are willing to make sure that in our own programs of activities, we include as much as possible those standards that will help the country speed up its own process of engagement with the Europeans. So I think a more coordinated approach with the European Union is something that we are looking into, and we are willing to include in our own planning of our activities.
There is a possibility for constitutional changes here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and until the European Court verdict in case Sejdić-Finci, it seems that everything in Bosnia was subjected to three constituent peoples. So I'm interested, could Sejdić-Finci case be a milestone for changing some changes in Bosnia and Herzegovina, especially constitutional changes?
Well, my view is, first of all, I think we have the good news that there is a government. There is a government, as we said, is moving ahead with a pragmatic approach. But I think in the wider picture, what is essential is a constitutional reform. Building on the foundations of Dayton, I think we need to move forward there, and I think Bosnia and Herzegovina needs to move forward. The issue of Sejdić-Finci is already something that has gone on for too long. In my view, it is really important for this to come to closure and for implementation really to take place. But I think it is time also for the political leaders of the country to display vision and to display the courage to move ahead. And I think what is needed here is a vision of development, of creation of a more functional set of institutions. I think it would be important also to give more space to the state institutions and to give a larger role and to simplify a system that is, the way I see it, rather unwieldy, costly, and not necessarily very efficient.
Okay, what Mr. Bevanda told you about that? Is there a goodwill in Republic of Srpska and in Federation to move forward and to give more power to the institutions, state institutions here in Sarajevo?
Well, that's really, we didn't discuss this in detail with Mr. Bevanda, but it is clearly something that falls more in the responsibility of the leaders of the political parties more than in that of the government. I think the government is really concerned about the economic development, creating jobs and creating better conditions of living in the country. But this is an area where the responsibility has to come from the political leaders. And they are the ones who have to display the vision that is a vision that shows the long-term interest for the country in itself.
Are they aware in the new government that they should take more seriously the daily life problems and to move forward from ethnical things?
Well, it seems to me from what I heard, and Chairman Bevanda was telling this very clearly, they want to be very pragmatic. And he wants really to put a focus on solving practical problems and moving forward in a very concrete manner. So it seems to me that that is his plan and that is his program. Of course, as I say, he will need the cooperation of everybody to be able to find the necessary conditions for him to implement that program. As far as external actors like the OSCE are concerned, we're willing to give support because we think it is in the interest of Bosnia and Herzegovina to move forward and to develop economically as well.
One of the conditions for European Union membership is a reform of justice system, and that applies to all countries in the former Yugoslavia region. Serbia had some justice reforms. Lots of people are not satisfied with them. And there are Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro and Macedonia who should start. those reforms. So did you speak about those reforms with Mr. Bevanda? And what do you think about the justice system in those countries?
Well, I didn't discuss it in detail, but I certainly mentioned the issue. And certainly this remains also for us, the OSCE, a priority issue in the work of our mission, the rule of law area, and particularly the justice sector, whether this is war crimes, whether this is supporting the Minister of Justice and the State Court and the Prosecutor Office. Certainly these are areas of priority where we think that more support and more reform is needed. I think this is not only obviously an issue for Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is indeed a regional question. I dealt with these issues when I was in Kosovo before the European Union started engaging directly in this. This is one of those areas where the European standards also should apply, and this is why we are closely coordinating our activities with the Europeans to make sure that the result of the work we do, in fact, helps Bosnia and Herzegovina and the other countries of the region where we operate move closer to the European Union.
War crimes and prosecuting war crimes is still a hot topic in this region. Did the countries of the region show ability and willingness to process war crimes? And what do you think about the way the justice system in the region faced with war crimes?
Well, I think the strategy of ICTY, of transferring progressively responsibilities to the countries, is, I think, an important step in acknowledging the responsibility of the countries themselves. However, this remains an issue that is very much related to the underlying processes of, long-term reconciliation and promotion of integration that we were discussing earlier. We see that even Croatia, that is a country that has now achieved the objective of signing the accession treaty, as we closed the mission, and we closed it in a very positive mode. It was a success story, and we operated in so many areas assisting Croatia in its progress towards the European Union. We still found the area of war crimes to be problematic in certain aspects, and we maintained a program of assistance to civil society, to local Croatian NGOs, to monitor war crime trials. So this remains an area that is politically sensitive, and an area where the international community needs to stay engaged to assist in this process of ensuring rule of law, but also helping in reconciliation over long term, because this is something you need to come to terms with.
You have been also a chief of UNMIK, United Nations Mission on Kosovo. Can you please share your thoughts with us about the current situation in Kosovo? What do you think about that?
Well, the current situation in Kosovo, first of all, I would say that it is good that the European Union has taken a larger role. During my time in Kosovo, we really went a long way towards creating the conditions for the Europeans to come in and to project a perspective and a role for themselves. I think a long-term sustainable solution on Kosovo goes via Brussels and goes via a dialogue between Pristina and Belgrade, where the European Union will remain the key player, the key mediator, along with others, of course, relevant parties. There have been steps forward, but the road is still long. We'll have to see. Now we have elections coming up in Belgrade, and there's always some political event along the path, but I think the dynamics of the process are there, and with a constructive contribution from all sides, I think at some point we'll see the light at the end of the tunnel also on that dossier.
You know very well the situation in Kosovo. On one side, there is Pristina, who is pressing Serbs in north, especially in north part of Kosovo, to recognize the state of Kosovo. And on the other side, there is Belgrade, who is also pressing the Serbs, especially in the north part, not to do that. So they're in some kind of interregnum, and they live very hard. So what is your message to them? What they should do?
Well, I think what is needed is a constructive behavior from all sides. I think also there it is important that everybody looks at the long-term perspectives for everybody. I heard statements recently calling for larger Albanian community, if you want to call it that way. I'm not sure that this is the way to go. Once again, the way forward is through societies that leave room for minorities, that give the necessary degree of autonomy also for the minorities to feel comfortable in this multi-ethnic society, but really trying to redefine realities along ethnic lines. I think we are well over that time, and we shouldn't really go back to that.
When official Belgrade talks about Kosovo, it very often mentions the importance of UNMIK mission on Kosovo, but there is a sense that that mission fell in a background when EULEX and International Civil Office was open in Pristina. Is Belgrade playing on a good card?
Well, I think this is not so much about UNMIK. This is more about 1244 and what UNMIK stands for. And this is, again, one of the core issues and one of those issues with which the international community, Serbia and the Kosovars will have to come to terms. And the vehicle for that is, once again, the EU-led process. The EU-led process should move from a process of resolving practical issues, issues that in some, to a certain extent, also revolve around questions in the north, to the larger question of the future setup and the future management of the relations between Belgrade and Pristina. And I think that's the way, but the starting point for that, for Belgrade, for what I could see, is a respect of the UN Security Council resolution that is regulating the system. So it is, that is the point of departure, and the solution should be compatible also with what the Security Council has deliberated up front.
You mentioned that there is going to be basically parliamentary elections in Serbia in the beginning of May. So is OSCE is going to monitor those elections, and what are you expecting from them?
Well, once dates are fixed, I assume there will be an invitation. I frankly, I'm not aware of an invitation already having come in, but I expect this invitation will be forthcoming. I would expect the OSCE to be monitoring them. As to the contents, I really can't predict. I'm curious myself to see what the result of those elections will be. I hope that there will be forces emerging from the elections. There will be constructive forces that will continue to engage for a perspective of development of Serbia, of the region, and where also the European Union will have a strong role as it has today, and where also we, from the OSCE side, will continue to engage constructively as we have done so far.
OSCE mission here in this region is in constant change. So can you please tell me what is left for OSCE to do in this part of Europe?
Well, our role is very much related to ongoing processes. It is evolving. The reason why I came here, among others, is to look at what we are doing, to see what adjustments we need to make, take into account evolutions internally, evolution of the role of the international community here, and making sure that we proceed and we continue to work in a way that is at the same time efficient and constructive, and also based on the requirements that exist on the ground. Therefore, I'm engaging also with governments to see how they perceive our role and to better understand where we should allocate our resources. I think we are everywhere. We are seeing a mode of operation that is more and more coordinated with other players. And therefore also this element, and this goes back to what I was saying about my trip to Brussels recently, our engagement is also something that needs to be part of a coordinated vision with the other institutions here. The work that needs to be done is still dealing with some of the issues that are open, and we spoke earlier about the question of relations between the communities. There are issues such as refugee returns. There will be an important event here next month here in Sarajevo, to which we attach importance. Another discussion I had recently was with the High Commissioner for Refugees, Gutierrez, where we discussed the work that remains to be done on return of refugees. Still 250,000. There's a program which is pretty ambitious of reconstruction of homes for many of these refugees and returnees. There has been progress. There has been progress in returning people, in returning properties, but more needs to be done. And important funds are still required, so certainly we are looking for support. That's an example of an area where there has been progress, but we aren't there yet, and so we need to finish. And this is part of our own agenda for the region. We are working on a number of issues where the work, however, is not completed. And we are looking forward to a moment when we can declare victory, as we did in Croatia not long ago, and where things will look brighter for the whole region.
Which country is going to be next, where you're going to declare victory?
Oh, that is something that will depend on many factors, and where the Europeans will also play a role. So we'll have to see also who is doing best in this beauty contest with Brussels.
And at the end, tell me, when you compare a situation, for example, from 1995 when war was over here in this region, and today, did we advance in justice system, in human rights, in dealing with war crimes, with fulfilling the European Union sets of rules and the other things?
Well, you did advance, but not enough. There is more work to be done. And this is where additional engagement is needed. This is why also the process of joining or moving towards the European Union is somehow disappointingly slow, maybe for some more than others. So I think a little bit everywhere engagement is needed, and each of the countries has its own agenda and its own list of issues to deal with. We've seen Albania with the engagement among the political forces in pursuing reform of the electoral process, and just to give you an example. And the same applies to Serbia. Serbia now has reached a stage where a decision has been made in Brussels, so that's an important step forward. I think it should serve also as encouragement to others. Croatia, of course, we mentioned as a success story. We see also positive movement in Montenegro. I think here in Bosnia-Herzegovina, the fact that also the European Union is taking locally a stronger role now with the role of the USR, I think is good news. But this doesn't mean that the issues on the agenda are any easier. What is needed is the engagement of the local leaders in really understanding that the long-term interest of the country is something that must prevail over, how can I say, local perceptions. Really what is needed now is this kind of leadership that looks at the long term and that looks at where Bosnia should be one day and find its right place among the other, in the family of the other European countries.
Mr. Zannieri, thank you very much.
Thank you, it was my pleasure.
We ask the question.
What is needed in the world?